each of the modules, we had learning objectives, isn't it? At the end of the session, you should be. Some of the learning objectives will be achieved only after the end of this contact program. You had proxies, assignments inbuilt into the modules and assignments online. So you understood the difference between the two, right? And then this is your contact. And what does the term andragogy mean? Adult learning. So all of you adults? Yes? You guess so, all right. And is there learning occurring? So which means, next one. This is just to say, our team is from Kerala, which is called God's own country, not by me, by the tourism department. So if any of you will feel like coming from Kenya, Nigeria, Uganda, or anywhere from India, this is what Kerala is all about. And these are some of our festivals, our beaches, Ayurveda, all sorts of things, just to give you a welcome. And this is one of our traditional costumes also, like our Nigerian friend, I wore this particular costume just to welcome you to our state, which is called God's own country. And now this is just a very brief introduction, and I'd like to hand over the rest of the session to Sri Kumari.
Thank you, ma'am. So once again, let me say good morning. Madam was talking about andragogy, but I feel myself to be a third-year student when she is here, because she taught me pathology. Whatever pathology I know, I owe it to her. And whatever medical education, she is the one who got us into this, got us interested in this. So we owe, that's why she has chosen one of her early day students and one of her latter day students. Shankar is a younger person who has come into the medical education when she was a more mature teacher, and I was one of her early students in medical education, as well as, of course, I am from Trichur. Even though I am basically based in Trivandrum, I am from Trichur because I am presently working in the Jubilee Mission Medical College in Trichur. So my first idea is to introduce you to the basics of educational technology. So first, it's a simple exercise for you. Can you decipher these lines? Does it convey any meaning to you? Now does it convey any meaning? See, this is the way we can put across our matter to our students or our learners. Put it as simple as possible. Don't think that it is too simple. Nothing is too simple. So that is the reason why we look at education from a system approach. That is the easiest way to understand it. Of course, all of us have heard the word system. It's very familiar to all of us. But let us say from the educational technology point of view, what does a system mean? It's a functional entity, and it consists of a number of subsystems. And these subsystems are interdependent and interrelated. And it functions to achieve certain goals. It's influenced by its environment. The environment may be conducive or non-conducive. Just think for a while whether the system of education that you are imparting to your learners will fall under this. Are these true with that system? Your system or the program, the educational program that you are running. And we have an open system. That means one which can respond to changes that may occur while the system is functioning. That is what you call as an open system, whereas a closed system which does not alter its function. You have planned a program, the program goes on whatever happens. But in an open system, you are open to changes, you can change it at any time. And what are the functional stages of the system? When we come to that functional stages, it will become quite clear to us. See, in our educational system, what is the input? What is the input? The learners. What is the process? That is the educational process. And what is the output? Again the learners. So we have the learners as the input, we have the learners as the output. But what is the difference between the input and the output? We have an expectation regarding the output. So if the expected output and the actual output, they should be as close as possible to each other, then only our system is effective. See, our system may be a very efficient system. We may be running this educational program very successfully, but still if the learners, the output is not the same as the expected output, then our system is not effective. That is the advantage of having an open system, because if after our training program we find that the system has not been effective, then we can of course go back and change the process. So that is the advantage of having an open system. So I hope it's clear why we equate our educational program to a system, and that to an open system. And now what is this process? So most of our day's session will be regarding the process. The process consists of the 3 steps, which are the formulation of the aims and objectives for the program, planning and implementing the teaching learning process, and planning and implementing a scheme of evaluation of the outcome of learning. So basically I would be dealing with this part. Madam will be mainly concerning herself with the teaching learning process, and Shankar will be dealing with the evaluation process. That is how we have planned the today's program. So what are the components of the process? Now the terms aims and objectives, they usually go together, no? What is exactly the difference between aims and objectives? More broad, whereas objectives are clear and specific. So objectives have to be based on the needs and defines what the learner should be able to do. See, this is something which the trainer has always keep in mind. The objectives are not for the trainer, it is for the learner, and we must specify the objectives in a learner oriented fashion and not in a teacher oriented fashion. So how do we decide on the teaching learning program? Based on the objectives we plan our teaching learning program, and the planning and implementation will depend on how much time we have. So today we have only one day for us. So we have to plan our program in such a way that we are able to accomplish our objectives within that time. So curricular time is very important. Then the strength of the faculty, experience of the faculty, the learning resources we have, and the teacher has a crucial role, because it is the trainer or the teacher who is making use of all these things to attain or achieve the objectives. So how do we plan the evaluation process? As I said, an effective educational system is one where the actual output and the expected output are very close to each other. They cannot be the same. There will be some way this way, that way. So we have to have an evaluation process which is based on the objectives to be achieved by the learner at the end of the course. See, this is something which we have to keep in mind. We have specified the objectives, and we have to evaluate this learner from the point of view of the objectives specified. So the quality of the output is also decided by the evaluation process. So depending on the nature or the quality of the output that you require, you plan your evaluation process. See, any evaluation process is something which is deciding how your learner should be at the end of the program. So depending on your need, you decide on the evaluation process. So it also provides a feedback regarding the objectives. So only after you run your program once, you can decide whether your program has been effective, because you have to assess your input and then only you can come out with your effectiveness. So that is, the output is the one which indicates the effectiveness of the system, and if there is a gross discordance, naturally the program is ineffective. So this is not the way we have to have our output coming from the program, just putting in some bit of knowledge. So that takes us to another question, whether it is a cycle or a spiral, the educational process. So you find that the educational spiral, it is an spiral because you have the educational objective specified, you give, the process takes place, finally you evaluate, you find if the system has not been effective, you redefine and reprogram the system. So what is the role of the teachers in this process? And we say that the effective teacher has the role of a system specialist. Now we are in the I era, so you have to inform, the IT era is there, so you always call yourself as a system specialist instead of simply a teacher. And the teacher has a role in all the three components of the system. Don't think that you don't have a role in formulating the objectives. You have. So you are all going to be gurus. And what does this guru do? Do you think that he is in a field with his students, he is in an open air atmosphere? Does it mean that he doesn't have his objectives? Yeah, he has. He has a charted out teaching learning program, and he has a specific evaluation process also. We have seen all that. And they are great teachers, but do they all belong to the same class or same? They have all taught us so many different things, but they are all teachers. So teacher can be of different. And when you are a trainer, especially for a program like the bioethics, you have to be imbibe qualities from all these great teachers to be an effective teacher. So a good teacher provides intellectual excitement. The teacher can only act as a facilitator. You leave your learners free to imbibe their qualities, and the teacher himself or herself has to be a lifelong learner to be an effective teacher. Can you see the picture clearly? What do you see there?
Trying to open a big bottle with a small
Opener.
It is actually a painting.
Yeah.
Because this picture had come in the internet.
Ah.
Today,
You have seen it already, yeah. So he immediately, he had not seen the picture, no? You were able to immediately find it out because you had prior knowledge or exposure to it. So that is something which you have to all, that is the reason why I brought this picture, because I knew that some of the people would have seen it, so they will be able to interpret it correctly. So the same way you have to look at your learners also. Some may have some prior exposure, others may not have. So he just said what came to his mind, no? He said that a big bottle has been opened by a, trying to open it with a small opener. That is one way of looking at it. So that is why you have to always have an open mind towards your learner. Now we will go to the major part of our discussion, that is educational objectives and taxonomy. Of course, you have already told me what objectives mean. So what are the types of objectives? So you have some general objectives, then you have your course objectives, and you have the specific learning or instructional objective. See, when it comes to the, what is the basic difference between the two? All these three. The general objectives are specific, at the same time they imbibe certain wider areas. When it comes to the course objectives, it becomes still narrower. It comes to the SLO, it becomes a very specific task. So before each session, we should have an SLO or several SLOs. So let us see why objectives should be specified. Please go through this paragraph. Does it make any sense? Does it make any It's, huh? Of course, you can make out the meaning of the word.
Separate bullets and then do some kind of.
Yeah. Okay, okay. So that means that it makes sense, but it doesn't tell you what exact. There is no link. Yeah, yeah. Let me link it. Now you read it once again. Does the link is provided? Yeah, so that you know what it is. So that is why you should have an objective. See, that title has provided the objective, how to make and fly a kite. And the paragraph tells you how to do it. That is all. When I gave you the same paragraph, you yourself read it, you said it didn't make sense. But now does it make sense? So that is the reason why we have to specify the objectives which specify the predetermined goals, and the learning process can be properly directed, the learning process can be properly planned, and the evaluation process can be decided to ensure the quality of the output. That is the reason why before starting any program, we have to first specify the objectives. So what are the objectives of this session? I am supposed to tell you, isn't it? Huh? Yes. So the learners should be, for the time being you are all learners, learners should be able to frame an educational objective relating to any of the topics that have already been covered. Then enumerate the qualities of an objective, list the components of an objective, identify the correct domain in a predetermined objective, frame SLOs belonging to different objectives. So my objectives are very simple, just 5 specific some objectives I have. So here is a simple exercise. The Hippocratic tradition was focused on healing rather than curing. Can you frame an objective based on this concept? Then do so. Huh? No, when you frame the objectives, you have to state in such a way that what the learner should be able to do. Say you are telling your learner that Hippocratic tradition was focused on healing rather than curing. So from that concept, what you expect your learner to imbibe, that is what. See, if I say, I will supply that third objective, differentiate between healing and cure. So then it's a simple sentence, but you have been able to frame 3 different objectives from that. So that is how we go about doing it. So what are the qualities of the objective? I think all of you are familiar with this Rumba. See, the objective should be relevant to the learner. See, when you state an objective, the learner should feel that there is some relevance in this objective, so that I am getting something out of it. Then it should be unequivocal. That means that there should not be any doubt in the mind of the learner as to what he or she should be able to do at the end of the session, and it should be measurable. You should be able to see, or somebody else should be able to see how the objectives have been achieved. So the objective should be achieved, and we should be able to measure the behavioral change that has occurred in the learner. So that is why these are considered as the qualities of an objective. Is it clear? What I meant by the qualities of an objective. So there is an exercise for each group, but unfortunately, does any of you have any of your course objectives or do you remember any of these things? Because we plan to have 8 people in a group. You may be in 2 different rows, but even if you cannot do it, no, if you have this is our module, no? You just please give me that. See, Madam has given an objective, aware of the utility of the distance education module for teaching and learning. At the end of the program, the learner should be aware of the utility of a distance education module for teaching and learning. Can you apply the Rumba to this objective? So is it relevant, that objective? It's very relevant, isn't it? Then, is it unequivocally stated? It's clear, you know what you, then how will you observe? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? So all the qualities of the objective are satisfied. So that is how you frame the objectives. Next we go on to the taxonomy of educational objectives. What do you mean by taxonomy? Classification, the same. Similarly, you have the three domains which have been described by Bloom: cognitive, psychomotor and affective. Of course, they are self-explanatory. Cognitive pertains to knowledge, psychomotor pertains to action, and affective pertains to the heart. Now, what is the significance of this picture? They are overlapping. You cannot have an objective which is specifically in a single domain. Most of the objectives have overlapping domains. So, cognitive domain is mainly concerned with the acquisition of knowledge. So, there are different levels of cognition, and I found that most of you are familiar with the different levels, and you can see that this is the picture which shows how the level goes up as you ascend up. From simple knowledge recall, you go up to the stage of evaluation. And what do you think is the level to be achieved in the learning of bioethics? Is it enough you have knowledge, comprehension, application? Enough? Shall I stop? No, the higher levels are a must in this particular field. So, these are the acquisition of physical abilities, motor or muscle. Do they have a role in the learning of bioethics or the training of? They have? The train, yeah. Where the program. So, this manipulation of materials and objects in clinical research and all, you are manipulating the, yeah. So, you have to have a lot of the psychomotor domain is important in refining of the skills. Here again you have the different stages where you observe, you imitate, you practice under guidance, you simulate, and then finally you have your well refined skill. Then coming to the affective domain, which is the description of tasks concerning the changes of interest and attitudes, development of values, adjustment to situations, communication skills, interpersonal, and this is, I feel, the domain of utmost importance in the learning of bioethics. Unless you have a properly developed affective domain, you cannot be trainers in bioethics. So, what are the different stages? First, you become aware of an I. That is what you are getting now in your classes. You are getting and you are becoming aware of the principles, the theories, the practice of bioethics. Then you are responding to those ideas now. Then it becomes internalized, or it becomes a behavioral characteristic. So, you know that there is an intermingling of the domains in the objectives. So, what do you see in this picture? Now, you had a previous exposure. Now, tell me, what do you perceive? So that means it is against. Yeah, he is enjoying the scene. That's what you feel, no? No. Then what is it? Has he pushed them in there? It's again a drawing only. He is enjoying his drawing, whereas he has made a well and two fellows are inside. So he has done it so well that you said that he is enjoying it. No, he is enjoying the way you are perceiving his drawing. That is all. So now, just give me some ideas regarding the domains involved in the following situations. Which are the domains involved in counseling? Only affective? See, all the three. See, when you have to have a solid cognitive domain behind you if you want to counsel, isn't it? Yeah. Then what about granting consent for a research program? Again all three. But is there any difference between the levels? Any difference? Or which domain is contributing more? See, between counseling and granting a consent, which domain is, as you said, in counseling it is mainly affective, whereas in granting consent for a research problem, cognitive and very high level of cognition. You have to evaluate the program and then only give your consent, and you yourself should be well versed in the techniques involved in the research. At least there should be one person who knows how the technique is going to be carried out. Then what about organizing a training program? That's what you are all going to do. Where is the why did you all say when it is training it is psychomotor? It starts with cognition, but why? I know why you all said that psychomotor. Because you have to do a lot of running around. That is the reason why you are saying psychomotor. When you organize a training program, you have to have a lot of muscular activity. You will end up the day with aching legs and all. So these are the 3 H's. The harmonious development of the head, heart and the hand is the mark of effective learning. So now we go on to the final part of the session, that is the specific which defines the specific tasks or skills to be achieved by a learner. So it is based on the course objectives. See, this is where the course objectives come in. See, when you are planning a training program based on certain needs, they form the general objectives that need. Then you frame the course objectives and each session is planned on specific objectives. And for each session, each trainer will have his or her own specific learning objectives. That's why in the beginning I said the objectives for this session. My specific learning objectives I have already stated in the beginning. So it is a specific learning objective should have, or it should be relevant, unequivocally stated, measurable, behavioral, and it should be achievable. So each SLO or specific learning objective should have an action, what the learner should do, should be able to do, what is the content, there should be conditions and criteria. So this condition and criteria usually they go together, or sometimes they will be specifically stated. When we come to different objectives, you will understand that clearly. So it should be relevant to the needs of the learner and unequivocal. That means it should be clearly stated. So we will take up the topic of informed consent, which is more or less familiar to all. So the learner should know how to obtain an informed consent from patient's relatives. Is it correctly stated or not? What is wrong with it?
The patient's relatives. The informed consent should be obtained from the patient,
Ah.
not the relatives.
So it is that theoretically it is wrong. Then anything else wrong with it? No is not an action. The learner is, that is why it is not correctly stated. So if you have to have an action verb. Draft, define, explain. These are the action verbs. So identify the different components in the SIOs being given, identify the domain involved. The learner should be able to define informed consent. Is there any ambiguity with it? It is clearly defined, unequivocally stated. The learner should be able to define informed consent. Then draft an informed consent. Is it again relevant? Translate it to vernacular. Translate it back to English. What is the reason?
To make sure that the original English
Yeah.
tallies with the back.
Type and get a printout. So which are the domains involved in this? This is rather a low level of cognition. Draft an informed consent. But again, it's a higher level of cognition. Then translate it to vernacular. Again, cognitive. translate it back to English. Is there any difference in the level involved there? Yeah. Yeah, that is it. Yeah. And type and get a printout, mainly psychomotor. So the learner should be able to get an informed consent for a surgical procedure with high risk. Again, is it correctly stated? It's not. Get is not it's not what the learner should be able to explain to the patients. So that is what the learner is doing. Learner is getting the consent, but what is the learner doing? Explain to the patient's relatives the emergency situation, explain all the alternatives available. Again, the learner should be able to convince the patient, the learner can, or if it's a doctor, he can do the surgery only if he gets the consent. That's what he should achieve. But is it enough if I say convince? No. Explain the alternative lines of management and explain the risks involved if the surgery is delayed. So then only it has become unequivocal, measurable and achievable. So the action verb is the main thing in a specific learning objective. So if you give the correct action verb, then the rest of the statement will be naturally correct. So there are different categories, that is the learner must know certain categories which are good to know and some others which are nice to know. And always the trainer or the teacher should have a clear idea what is must, what is desirable, what is nice. So actually I must thank one of our participants for sending these SIOs as in the assignment. I got her permission to do it. So can anybody else do it? You have sent it. You have sent it. You have sent it. Who has sent this? I got it as part of my assignment.
We said and forget.
Explain ethical issues regarding surrogate gestation to a potential surrogate mother. I just want the comments of the house on this, that's all. Is it clearly stated? Explain ethical issues. So the learner should be able to explain what ethical issues. So these are the content and the condition and the criteria regarding surrogate gestation to a potential surrogate mother. So this is the way you will do it. Then list the challenges and new directions taken to solve problems in evaluating and conducting vaccine trials in developing countries. Huh? You don't agree?
Not specific. It's not specific.
Why? List the challenges.
Okay.
So that is one. Challenges and new directions. So take away the new directions. So taken to solve problems in evaluating. So you can split it into different SLOs. That is why. That's why I took this. So now you have got the idea how to frame an objective. Am I clear? Yeah. See, since we don't have much time, we cannot write down a specific. You can do it yourself, satisfy yourself. Of course, you can have peer review. So effective learning occurs by slope. As I tell you, the best form of admiration is imitation. Madam is very fond of bringing out these types of ideas. Rumba was her idea, so now I have brought out slope. Seeing, observing, listening and practice. Thank you. No questions can mean two things. One, everything is quite clear, so there are no questions, no doubts. The second thing is everything has gone above your head, so no questions, no doubts. I'll take it in the positive sense. Thank you very much.